Okay, so basically, my talk is about basically what's the story, framing science songs. My name's basically John Chase. I've go by the rap name Ort Kuiper, and I've been writing science raps since about 2008. And I got into it by accident. I wasn't sure exactly where it was going to take me, but it's got me to where I am now. So I'm going to talk about something specific that I noticed, though, which is how do we classify different songs, and how do we give people a way to kind of assess and extract the information from the songs? Because specifically with raps are pretty fast and pretty dense with information. So I figured if you've got some way to help people get that information into their head and extract the correct meaning, then you're on a winner. So basically, I'll start here. So the idea is, how do we listen to the science songs, and what is the purpose of the song in the first place? So often in a way, and I don't know if you've all experienced the same thing, but I sometimes get it with the raps where it's seen as just, oh, that's a really cool thing for kids to get involved in. But the ins and outs of the rap aren't something that's looked into, and how the teachers would take on the rap in class be put across or given as an idea. It's just more, they want me to rap and they're happy that I'm there. I think it really depends on. So if I set myself high goals, I might expect the whole class to learn calculus from one rap. That would be pretty unrealistic. And the reality is you do need school, you do need to be there to learn it. But the music can provide you with ways to revise, and can also maybe give you a better view of something that you thought was difficult, and maybe give you another way to enter the subject. So that leads me to the idea of, despite the purpose that I intend for the song, actually, it's not really me who defines the value of the song in the end. It's the listener. It's what the listener actually gets from the song that defines its value. So if someone listens to something I've produced and they enjoyed it and it inspired them to go to another science event, then it's a winner. If someone else has actually listened and rewound the song over and over again and remembered every word, and then gone into an exam and been able to answer one extra question, then that's a success, and that's the value of it. So really the value of the song, it's really in the listener. And I think that's important to recognize, how the listener influences the communication that we try to portray to them. So this leads me to the idea of framing the song. So when you frame a song, you're kind of presenting it in a particular way. So you're not just giving them a song and letting them get on with it. You're saying, when you listen to this song, why not listen out for A, B, or C? Or this time when you listen to it, why don't you look at the process of mitosis and the 4 different stages? And I have got a mitosis rap, and it does have the 4 stages. But if you just played the raps, someone might miss one of the stages. They might not be looking out for it. So by framing the song and giving them a way to view it, you can help almost identify something that they should be extracting from it, and help kind of guide their perception of the song. So why would we do this? Why is this important? Well, I'd like to bring your attention to Bloom's taxonomy. I believe some of you are probably familiar with it already. If you're not, you've probably reading the slides and way ahead of me now anyway. But there's a guy called Benjamin Bloom, and he basically came up with a taxonomy to have more in-depth thinking when they're learning. So you can see at the bottom, it starts with remembering. That's the base level. So that's simply the ability to remember a fact. And some people have criticisms of the exam system where they say it's just regurgitation of facts. And a lot of exams regurgitate facts. It also has many different elements where you have to interpret information as well. So when we think about the remembering part, there are a few songs that just deal with the remembering part. They just deal with the part of being able to regurgitate facts. So The Elements, Tom Lehrer, is a classic song. It's probably one of the most widely known science songs there is. People will sing it, they learn it for Christmas parties, birthday parties. It's their special trick that they like to bring out. So much so that Harry Potter himself, Daniel Radcliffe, performed it on the Graham Norton show in UK television. And when I saw that, I was pretty amazed that he'd done that, and he'd got an audience of millions. And I wondered, exactly is it that people have learned from it? Now, the reason that song is probably so popular because it's actually a parody of another song, and we already have seen from many of the talks how parodies can be so empowering for writing songs about science, technology, engineering, or maths. And the Elements song was actually a parody of the Major General song from Pirates of Penzance. But when you listen to that, you also hear that that song has got quite a lot of references to science, history, geography. It mentions calculus, quadrilateral equations, binomial theorem, but there's no description of them or any context of what they mean. So it's more scientific words used in a song, which could give the impression that it's actually scientific, when really you're not really learning much, you're just hearing words. The Element song is exactly the same. When I listened to the Element song to learn a bit about the periodic table or a bit about the elements, I sat back and was pretty shocked that actually I didn't learn anything except that there are many elements that Harvard are aware of, and there's some that they haven't yet discovered. So that was all I'd actually got from that. And I thought, well, if that's so popular, could I potentially do my own version, but actually put the information in a way that someone could actually and be able to actually use some of this information to do some work. So I'm going to show you the rap in a second, just a verse of it to give you an idea if you haven't seen or heard it yet. But in the description on the rap, it's actually up on YouTube. I clearly framed the rap, set the tone for what I want the listener to look out for. I want them to understand what the rap is doing in each verse, rather than just passively taking in the information and taking it in just as a bit of music. I want them to actually think about, actually this verse is talking about this, and how does that relate to my studies? And I also set a little challenge at the end where I asked them to let me know if they managed to remember it. And if they memorize the chorus, how long does it take? Now, the chorus has the first 36 elements in order. So if they memorize that, they'll know that in order. Now, you don't really need to know the elements in order when it comes to studies and exams, because, well, you've got it there. You've got the periodic table with you. But I can testify that it does help when you're just talking or trying to work out stuff. You could instantly say, what is the 7th element or the 8th element? So it is a bit of a party trick, but they are in order. So here's a little sample of the periodic table rap.
Hydrogen, helium, then lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon, then sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, and phosphorus, and sulfur, and chlorine, and argon, and then potassium, calcium, scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, seeds to iron, copper, nickel, copper, zinc, gallium, and germanium, arsenic, and selenium, bromine, 26 of the elements give nice vice. Chemistry is basically the swapping of electrons. The number in the outer shell determines the reactions that are able to occur within atomic interactions. Elements reside in the SPD and the F blocks. Like if this table was a garden, these little blocks contain the roots to give order to all the atoms we have got. Like on the left, there are metals, and on the right, there are nuts. The metals are good at conducting heat and electricity, but non-metals are not, and usually have lower densities. But in between the two opposing chemical families are the metalloid elements that transition metals from between up to 11 in the D block. The right third, all elements are well in the period they rest in can allow us to determine how the orbital shells electrons utilizes hydrogen, helium, then lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon, then sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, and phosphorus, and sulfur, and chlorine, and argon, and then potassium, calcium, scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, seeds to iron, copper, nickel, zinc, gallium, germanium, and selenium, 26 krypton.
Okay, so as you can see, that's the first 36 elements in order, and it has been successful. I believe it could be potentially because the challenge is set, because a lot of responses do say that, oh, I've learned the rap now. And a lot of teachers have been setting their students assignments to actually learn the rap and the chorus. So it has been pretty popular, for more than 250,000 hits, which I've been pretty happy about. So it seems to have done what was intended from my part. And I think framing it may have helped, but then it may have just been that it was linked to their curriculum. Okay, so what else could I say about science in lyrics? Well, there are some pop songs that reference science. There are some rap songs. For example, there's Chemical Calisthenics by Black Alicious. That includes a big mix of scientific words. Others are pretty inaccurate, and some are just words strung together. And I'll give you an example. He says, the theory fundamental particles: protons, electrons, neutrons. Protons' charge is positive. By now you've guessed electrons are probably negatively charged, and neutrons don't follow either, neutral, in the middle. Now, it all seems good at first. Protons, electrons, and neutrons, the constituents of an atom. It talks about their charges, but then the key part is the fundamental particle part, because an electron is a fundamental particle, but the rest aren't. So some bits of the science can easily slip past if you're not looking for it. So again, it's sometimes important to frame science. And if you're coming up against children or students in a class, they might bring across something like this as an example of a good science song. But actually, there are elements where if we looked at it a bit closer and if we had the way to frame it, we could extract the things that are useful and maybe use them in class and take away the parts that aren't useful. But we'll talk about different elements of the songs a bit later. Also, in case any of you are fans of the Big Bang Theory, I had to listen to that at the start. Lots of scientific terms and lots of things that sound right at first, but then you find a few scientific inaccuracies. Now, the only reason I point that out, I do understand it is a song that's just for fun at the start of a series, but at the same time, people are learning it off by heart. And if they believe that that is all facts that they're saying, then the inaccuracies could sneak through. So sometimes it could just be handy to say that is a good song, but there are some places where you have to be careful. So just to make people aware of that. Okay, so I thought I should maybe mention where it all started for me, where my first rap was about science. And it was a rap called Astrobiology, and it was for NASA's Astrobiology magazine, the European edition. And the intention was just to promote astrobiology, to let people know that it existed. And I happened to have a book about astrobiology that I got this at the same time that I was asked to do it. And so I was able to look through this whole book, extract what I thought was the important parts, and try and put it into a rap. And I managed to do it pretty well. It gained quite a lot of press, possibly because I was a rapper from the UK who was asked by NASA to write a rap. And I think that got a lot of newsworthiness. And basically, they got what they wanted out of the rap. It promoted astrobiology. But having done that, I'm not actually sure what else I achieved apart from promoting it. Afterwards, I was inundated with requests to do school workshops and to do appearances. And a lot of people did say, like I said earlier, rap is such a cool way to learn science. And I thought, it is, but is anybody actually learning science? Or are they just enjoying what they heard? Or is it that it's people who's already into science who are listening to it and they recognize some of the references, and therefore I'm not actually winning over people who aren't into science? So I did wonder what it actually achieved. If you listen to the rap yourself, you can listen to it online on YouTube, the Astrobiology Rap. You can see I've split it into 3 different verses, and each verse starts with an introduction from a famous scientist or character. So the first verse starts with a segment from Stephen Hawking. The second one is not a scientist, but actually an American president who was talking about getting to the moon by the end of the century. And then we also had Carl Sagan as the last speaker, and the verse kind of shadowed what they said. So I was trying to frame by that person with people that everyone would recognize, hopefully, as well. when I did take the rap into schools, however, I realized that some of the kids weren't familiar with Carl Sagan, and they weren't familiar with old American presidents from the 1960s. And so sometimes I found myself actually giving them a history lesson rather than a straight up science lesson at the beginning. But to be fair, I think it's something that could be useful anyway, because it breaks up the learning a bit and gives people a bit of a more rounded experience when it comes to learning. But the most important thing was being able to actually, when I was in the school, to revisit the raps and frame it and ask the students to look for specific things that I spoke about, and then to sit down and explore that idea in more detail. And having done that a few times, I realized that maybe I should have provided teachers and lecturers with that same resource. So it's not just enough for me to write a song about science. Maybe I have to also give suggestions as to how that song can be used in a classroom setting, or how it could be used to further knowledge about that subject or around the subject. Okay, so let's move on to classifying songs, because I really wanted to touch a bit on this. Now, in the run-up to today, I was contacted by a few of our other speakers. So Willie did speak to me as Willie, so I apologize for that. So I'm gonna go and check it out the minute I can in the library. But I did speak to Lawrence Lehrer, and I did manage to check out his six classifications. And he said that it might be useful for me and to see how far close I am to them. In my head, it was remarkable because so many of them was the same, and I was so impressed and happy to see that someone had been thinking about it already, and that what I was thinking was along the same wavelength as someone like Lawrence Lehrer, who I know has been working on stuff like this for quite a while. So after looking at his list, I compared it to my list, and my list kind of covered a load of different ideas. Some stuff I had to subsequently throw away because I thought actually maybe they could be combined together. But as you can see, where Lawrence has said connected to history, I also thought some songs are about history as well. They document what happens. Maybe it's the life of a scientist, or the work that was done in the past by a group of scientists. He's got reinforcing mathematical thinking process. And I think it is important to have the thinking process, and not just the thinking process, but processes pushed as well. For example, how to do a titration, you could explain it in the song. And if someone wanted to remember how to do it, they could remember the method from the song. So I think processes are a really good thing to put across in a song that you can choose to use. Obviously, aid in recall is a goal that I think most songs are trying to do, to help people to remember the information. I've got that as the song is like a fact sheet. So it lays down the facts, and information can be regurgitated. If you remember it off by heart, like the periodic table rap that I produced, you remember that off by heart, then you can regurgitate any elements from 1 to 36 in periodic table. I've also got I realized the challenge is a good way to get people self-motivated. One of my things behind doing music and science is that you don't have to ask people to listen to songs. They tend to listen to them over and over again if they like them. And when you listen to it over and over again, you just absorb the lyrics. You remember it off by heart. You don't even have to work hard to do it. So if someone has a challenge, often people like to try and remember difficult phrases or difficult rhyme schemes. For example, the Element song by Tom Lehrer. So because of that, I realized setting people a challenge can help them to stay engaged with something. Rather than listen to it once or twice, they might listen to it 10, 15 or 20 times. Obviously, songs are good for introducing concepts or terms. And connection to the real world is a definite goal, as Lawrence Lehrer has put down as well, as he's put down. And I believe that is a goal for all science songs. I think anytime we write a science song for other people to listen to, it's important that we draw relationships to the world, because then the information and knowledge isn't as abstract. And I think that is of utmost importance in pretty much all communication. Humanizing mathematics, that is a very fair point, Lawrence. I've also got as entertainment, because obviously people sometimes just like to listen to a song and just hear it. As a point of persuasion, I don't know if anyone has thought about the idea of using song as a point of persuasion. And the idea behind that is if you was to write a song about climate change, generally you'd be trying to change people's view that climate change is something maybe we should be worried about or should be thinking about towards a better future or towards just a more safe and sustainable future. Anyone's individual beliefs are, if the climate's changing, we need to be prepared as a species. So sometimes a song can be just to persuade someone's way. I've got down a formal versus informal curriculum. So some songs will link with the curriculum that people are studying, and that's a direct reason for them to listen to the song. Other songs are more informal. So that would probably be my astrobiology rap. That is extremely informal, I think, because a lot of it doesn't cross with the curriculum, but by learning about the stuff in the rap, it helps to bolster the stuff that you learn in the curriculum. So science music can be as an informal form of curriculum as well, and that's how you can plan it. I just wanted to add this last thing, and I only threw it in at the last minute after speaking to a friend yesterday, in fact, and he asked me if I'd known about information mapping. Now, I'm not sure if any of you are aware of it, so I've just brought the little summary here just to let you know about it. So maybe it's something you can think about in the back of your head when you're producing music, or in the next section, we see when you're listening to music, how to segment it. So information mapping classifies information into one of 6 types based on the purpose to the audience of the communication. So it could be a principle. So what should I do or not do? So that could be, for example, if you're in a lab, it could be wear your goggles, wear your gloves, don't throw acids all around the room. It could be a concept. It could be a structure. So you could be doing a song about the structure of the cell and talking about its parts. It could be a process, like I said before, so how to do a titration or the correct method to do a particular study, or the correct process with it. And it could be a procedure, or it could be just dropping facts. And this could be what your whole song's about, or it could be individual parts have facts, and some parts about procedures, some parts about concepts, some parts about process. But here's another thing if you're writing your songs. And I just wanted to mention that when you're writing your songs, there are some things that we can do to help get the information across. And these are of utmost importance when we're producing our songs. Chunking, breaking up the information into small manageable units that can help people to remember it. Making it relevant to them. Of what is happening within that area. So like I said, when I framed my periodic table rap, what I'm doing in the blurb underneath, just so they knew what they was doing when they got to that part or what was happening. You should also be consistent. Try not to use too many and conflicting words, because when learners are learning something for the first time, sometimes it's easy for them to get lost. So being consistent and keeping a repetition of the same words really helps. Accessible detail, so organized and structured information, so those who need it can access it easily. So that might be they fast forward to the last verse rather than listening to the whole thing, because they know what's going on in the last verse and it's easy to get into. And graphics. Songs are often standalone, but I like to try and put graphics behind a lot of my raps. I've done a rap about the Krebs cycle and about Krebs himself, and the University of Sheffield, who I done it for, they put a video behind it, but it didn't have as much explanation in the visuals as I would have liked. And often when I make my videos, I like to put as much visuals to back up what I'm saying, because I'm aware the words come out so fast that it's really hard for people to actually get their head around it without watching it over and over again. So those are just some tips to help you if you are producing your own songs. And I hope I could steal another just 2 minutes of your time to play you a rap about maths that I did for Channel 4 Learning. And they put amazing visuals behind it. And I'd love for you guys to see this, to see how all of these ideas can potentially come together for an actual learning course.
Quad means 4, you can count the lines on a quadrilateral, the shape with 4 sides. If you add up the angles that you find, 60 degrees, trapeze or depending on the on the quadrilateral, the shape with 4 sides. If you add up the angles that you, then you'll get 360 degrees. Parallel or a kite, you notice that depending on the angles have a special name. Laterals we're gonna compare, starting with the regular. This one is a square. There are 4 equal comprised of S2s of the 4 angles, and that's only found in 2 quadrilaterals. So cut the 360 by 4, that each one angles is 90 degrees. Now the square was the simplest to handle, but give it a rectangle with 2 pairs of equals. So to consider that parallel, and this shape also has 4 equal angles, which only gets found in 2 quadrilaterals. So cut the 360 by 4 to see that each one of the angles is 90 degrees. Quad means 4, you can.
Okay, so thank you guys for listening. I hope I didn't wrap it on too much, and thank you. Any questions, please do post and I'll try and answer as best I can.
John, thank you so much. That was terrific. Yes, I will let you answer questions via text because we do need to set up for the next session.